And we are live. Leeds.js is back, everybody. How exciting is that? Yay. I'm super excited. Leeds.js has been, at the heart of the development community in Leeds for the last 6-7 years, I think. So it's really privileged to be able to run it again. And we're back in the BJSS office. So we've got some office space here, which is actually quite pleasant, I think. So it's really nice to have a bit of space to sprawl out a little bit and keep a little bit socially distanced. If you want to just be careful of each other, that's a good thing. So yeah, what's happening now? Why is suddenly Rich talking at the front of this event and Luke's not here and some other people aren't here? You might have seen Luke tweet that he was looking to move, and I believe he's moved to Edinburgh, and he's now kind of given the task of running this over to me and some friends that we're going to run it together. So Crispin, Steve, Joe, is Colin about? Colin's not here. Okay. So we're now kind of starting to run this, and Crispin give you a little bit of a flavor of what's to come after this first talk. But just to remind everyone, this is a place that we want to be comfortable for everyone. We really value you no matter what race, religion, gender identity, or sexual preferences that you have, and we really welcome you no matter what level of engineer or software developer you are. You're welcome. We're all learning stuff together, right? And that's the good thing about software, is we're always learning. We're always picking up new stuff. So we bring that spirit to what we do here. So I think that's the introduction out of the way. Hopefully the chat is going. Unfortunately, thanks to everyone who's written anything in the chat, I can't quite see what's on there. Oh, wow, look at that. Wave. Oh, that's nice. Hello, welcome. It's weird kind of doing it in person and remotely. So we get used to that. That's going to be a new thing from now. But yeah, we hope to do this from time to time and be back in this space. But today we have some great speakers, really great, interesting content. So we're going to love John, always love John doing a talk. This time he's not going to do it for 3 hours, I don't think. But before that, Joe's going to come and talk to us about internet. Is that on?
It helps. Does that work? Yep. Cool. Hello. So I am going to self-indulgently talk to you about my kids for the next 10 or 15 minutes, if that's all right. So this is entitled Field Notes of a Geriatric Millennial Father of Two. Geriatric millennial, for anyone who doesn't know, is the marketing term for anyone born between 1980 and 1985, because they can't work out whether we are Generation X or millennials. I think it means we like avocado on toast, but it's going to be very mushy. So let me just introduce myself. So hi, I'm Joe. I'm the Development Capability Lead at BJSS. I'm the proud husband and father. So I am literally going to talk about kids. I'm not joking about it. That is the point of this talk. I thought I'd start by introducing you to the Thornton family, so you get a sense of who we are and what I'm talking about. So we are a fairly stereotypical family. There's the two adults in us in the family, the two children, which I'll talk about. And just to set the scene, we have 5 pets and 5 Alexas in the house. The reason I mention that, because I feel it puts us in the right kind of tech bracket of we are sort of tech savvy enough to have 5 Alexas in the house, but not tech savvy enough not to have 5 Alexas in the house, if that makes sense. So that's kind of where we sit in that. So really, I just want to talk about some of the observations about how the children have been using devices and the internet over the last sort of year or so, because obviously it's been quite a strange time, for everybody, but certainly for the kids. So I should start by introducing them in a bit more detail, so you know who it is I'm talking about and where they're coming from. So I'd like to introduce you to subject A, who for the purpose of tape has been renamed Alice for this talk. Alice is an 11-year-old girl. She is quite a sporty little thing. In terms of things she likes doing, she likes watching TikTok and then making slime or custard or whatever the hell else it is that people seem to make on these videos, and then staining the kitchen with it, and probably spends far too much time on Roblox, as if anyone's got kids they will know is very popular at the moment. As far as what she dislikes, working iPhone chargers, apparently she managed to destroy about one a week as far as I can work out. I mean, they are made out of sellotape or something. I don't really know how they work, but they break a lot. But the key thing here is how does she interact with the internet? How does she sort of interact with the technological world? So her two key tools here are the iPhone and the iPad. So she is wired to her iPhone as much as possible, but also uses her iPad quite a lot. So that's how she gets through that. Subject B, Bob, is the elder of the two. He's a 13-year-old boy. He is obsessed with roller coasters and Apple products, and could probably tell you Steve Jobs' life story backwards. Go figure. In terms of what he doesn't like, well, he hates our terrible Wi-Fi because he's 13, and it's, as far as I can work out, that is the default kind of stance of 13-year-olds, is to assume that everything is terrible and it would only be better if we'd spend more money on it. How he interacts with technology, though, is sort of three key mediums. So his Xbox is central to his existence. It's how he talks to his friends. It's how he plays games. There's a lot going on in there. But he also uses his iPhone a lot, and he uses his iPhone in quite creative ways as well. I find he does. He makes stuff with his iPhone, which I'll come on to a bit later. And he has a Chromebook, which he does use for work, but is generally a glorified Netflix portal. So in terms of what they do, or what apps and device and websites they kind of visit, they both sort of use the core ones, which you might expect. So TikTok looms large in their staring into space, not achieving much for hours kind of milieu. Netflix is very popular, as is YouTube. To talk to their friends and interact with their friends, Snapchat and WhatsApp seem to be the most popular too. Alice uses Snapchat more. Bob uses WhatsApp. I don't know why that is. I think it's just the sort of friendship groups that they have seem to have gravitated towards these different media. Outside of that, Alice in particular, so I've mentioned Roblox already. So Roblox, if anybody doesn't know, is a kind of, it's an online game, or rather an online platform for making games. And then people make games on there, and they have quite a good kind of walled garden for children to interact with each other with the appropriate guardrails to make sure that not too much bad happens on there. So she, it's very popular with her and her friends, and she does a lot there. Also, I think because of COVID, she got into the habit of using Zoom. She was using Zoom a lot for doing, when she couldn't do sort of sporty stuff because of lockdown, she was getting these online lessons, got into the habit of using Zoom, and she's continued to use it to interact with her friends using my account. So I get all sorts of weird logins at weird times, but that's by the by. Bob, on the other hand, the Xbox, as I've mentioned, is centralist, and a lot of the interaction comes through the Xbox. But around the side of that, he started to use these kind of creation tools, so iMovie and Instagram to a lesser extent, and these other apps, which I was going to remember the name of beforehand, but just put the icons on. That's why you shouldn't just use an icon for conveying information. But you start to use these apps where you can edit videos and edit images and sort of play them back, and does so on quite a regular basis. Key things that are outside the circle, which they don't really tend to use. So Twitter, as far as they're concerned, is for arguments, and they can't understand why anybody would go anywhere near it, which is a fairly healthy response, I guess. And Facebook is just for old people, so that's not going to get touched. I'm being slightly disingenuous here. They do use Chrome and browsers to a certain extent, but I wanted to put that on there because it's one thing I've observed is it's not their primary way of interacting with the internet. So the way I think is if you want to go to somewhere on the internet, you sort of go to a browser and hit the site and do your thing. While they are very much use the apps first. They will try and find things through apps and through Xbox or whatever. And it's only if they can't do that, or only if somebody's forced them to do it, that they'll actually crack open Chrome or Safari or whatever to interact with the internet, which seems to be a bit of at least a shift from how I view the world. Okay, so just some general observations, I guess, of things they've been doing, things that I've observed them doing over the last sort of year or so, of how they're interacting with these devices and with the internet. I feel like I should do a folk socks out here. Anyway, so first one, multi-screening. So Bob in particular seems to use multiple devices at the same time. So games played on the Xbox in parallel to videos being watched on the Chromebook and a video call on his phone at the same time. How he manages to concentrate on them all, I have no idea. But he will do that. He'll have all three devices doing different things. And then if he wants to swap something around, suddenly the Netflix show will disappear off his Chromebook and appear on his phone. And so he can use his Chromebook for something else. I'm not really sure what else he uses Chromebook for, but you get the gist. So that's sort of multi-screening, using apps in parallel with one another. So the Xbox app alongside the actual Xbox, or using completely different things sort of across the board, and really switching between them quite naturally. I mentioned Alice earlier with her Zoom calls and her sports thing. So she's quite often doing that. She'll have some kind of class going on over Zoom, jumping around the bedroom doing that, whilst at the same time she'll have a video call going on with one of her friends. So they really sort of multitask amongst them. They are constantly connected, and this has been increased exponentially, I think, since COVID came along, forced all their friendships online. So Alice in particular will just walk around the house connected to a friend through FaceTime or whatever, not for any particular purpose. They're just online together talking. So you'll walk into the kitchen, she'll be sat eating a breakfast, there'll be a phone there staring at the ceiling, and 5 minutes later you'll realize there's actually someone else on the other end of that video call eating their breakfast on the other side of it. You have got to be a little bit careful not to walk around the house in a towel at the moment. It's a bit strange, but that is, I think, because there was a time when they couldn't physically interact with their friends. Everything went online for a while. You couldn't leave your house and see a friend, and they've sort of picked that up and just gone, all right, fine, well, that's how we hang out. Let's do the thing. Switching between friends, and also the sort of etiquette of it seems quite blunt as well. They'll have this call going on, and all of a sudden they'll get bored and just hang up on the other person. They don't talk to each other; they just call ended, and then they'll come back later, and everyone's fine. It's just apparently the thing that you do. So in terms of what they do other than talking to one of those devices, so Bob is able to use his phone to create images and videos as part of everyday conversation. You will be talking to him about a thing, and he will have grabbed a meme, changed the text, put it back up, and posted it back to you by the time you finish your sentence. He really is sort of, using those tools to talk, and as part of the way that he communicates, especially with his friends, but also with us. So his default way of communicating is to use images and to use video much more than I think sort of an older generation would do. When the kids are sort of sending each other messages and that kind of thing, a lot of the time they'll just record a voice message and send that off rather than texting, because it seems easier. Also, they can mess with the voice or whatever. So that is a sort of repeated thing, and they want to sort of put that back. They see a lot of these kind of videos and memes appearing, and it's the kind of thing to think about. And they it's so easy nowadays just to take something, change it slightly, pass it on, and do that, and they sort of evolve quite naturally. So it's interesting to watch them, at the same time slightly baffling. They have multiple logins to various apps, to TikTok, to Roblox, whatever. I think a lot of that time is because they forget their passwords or they forget their user information, and so they create a new account, and then they'll remember their passwords and go back to a different account. There is certainly some of that. But they also do it so that they can craft content for different audiences. So they'll do, Alice has got 3 or 4 different TikToks accounts, and she'll put different things on the different ones, so that there's ones which she'll share with her school friends, others that just go out to the wider internet with different settings, all that kind of thing. One so that she can post pictures of our cats with scrolled illustrations over them or whatever. So they're learning. So I mean, she's what, age 11 now, but she's learning to craft her online presence and sort of define how she looks to different audiences quite well. There is some conspicuously absent behavior of what they do, or certainly what do compared to me. So watching real-time television is just not a thing. They wouldn't know what time a program was, and they wouldn't even think to turn on terrestrial television, to be honest. Everything is on demand. So that's what they're used to. I think the only sort of real-time events that they might occasionally dial into would be like a Fortnite live event or something that's as close to a sort of real thing that get. Other than that, they assume things are there when they want them to be. Those sort of online streaming things that will release an episode every week drive them absolutely insane because they just don't understand why anyone would do that. They don't consider email to be an acceptable form of communication. Now they've had to get used to things like email a little bit because that's how they've been interacting with their schools over lockdown. But they just don't understand why. They don't understand why you would go through that process of an email when you can send a text or you can a video call or something. It's just, email is ridiculous. And they don't think about data capacity or constraints. They don't know whether, I mean, Bob's a bit better at this because he has to download his huge games onto the Xbox, so appreciates that there's all that kind of thing. But they don't think that much around, oh, I'm going to take a video and not use up this much space, or, oh, I have this limited data capacity. They just expect it to be there because they're used to it being there. And so they don't think about where the things are. So, for example, Alice, a while ago, we were going off to the back end of Beyond in Scotland where there was no data. So I said, well, look, download some stuff onto your phone so you can watch it. So she pressed download button, all that happened. And then she tried to watch it on her iPad because she clicked download. So she thought that meant it would work locally and hadn't really thought about the fact that it was a different device and the data wasn't there. And that's how it worked. So it was sort of interesting insight into how she, well, didn't think, I guess. So COVID is obviously loomed large in a lot of this kind of thing. And on that note, I'm just going to go grab my water before I die. So COVID's obviously been a huge impact on everybody's lives over the last 18 months or so. For the children, that meant switching very quickly to home learning and getting all their information via the internet, and also killing off any kind of face-to-face contact with their friends for a long time. That has, in all honesty, killed off any semblance of time limits on devices. So we used to try and be the good middle-class parent. I know you can't spend more than blah, blah, blah hours on it, all this kind of thing, but that's all gone out the window. I doubt we'll ever get it back because they've aged over this time and now we're just, that's where they are. And I think that is true with a lot of children. Certainly the amount of time that they're spending online has increased and doesn't seem to be going down. They have been forced to become familiar with a lot of the tools we kind of use for office work and that kind of thing. So online video tools, your Zooms, your Teams, Google Pages for doing work, the dreaded emails coming in, all that kind of thing, because that is the only ways which their teachers could communicate with them. I think a lot of teachers had to go through the same process, actually. They kind of, to start with, it was all quite clunky and people trying to work out what to do, but by the end of it, when they were finally going back to the schools, they kind of got it down to pat with the online lessons and the submitting the work via Google Page and that kind of thing. But it did require quite a lot of active IT support from me to get the kids doing that, which does make me worry about sort of, you know, families where they don't have the resident IT nerd in the house, of how well they cope with all that. And one thing I did notice as well is that Bob in particular struggled with online friendships when they're just online, because it was so easy for them to just block someone if they'd fallen out with one another. And suddenly a minor argument would end up with someone being blocked, and then weeks and months had passed by and they wouldn't speak. Well, since they've been able to get back person to person, they've been able to go and make friends again the day afterwards, and everything's fine. And that's sort sort of smooth itself out, but for a long time he was starting to get isolated just by how easy it is to disconnect, even though everyone's connected all the time, if that makes sense. So I'm going to back this up with some stats. It's, as far as I can work out, not just my kids that are going through this. This seems to be a fairly universal trend. So let me blind you with some science. So according to the Office of National Statistics, 85% of children own a smart, I think that's 10 to 15-year-olds in this case, own a smartphone that they use to go online. There's a drop off to around 50% for consoles and things after that, but the vast majority of children nowadays, I say children, 15-year-olds, whatever, have a smartphone, and that's what they use. And they use it primarily to watch videos. That's the main thing that comes out. How much data is going through to watch all these videos, no idea, but that seems to be the prime thing which people use, followed by sort of messaging and that kind of thing, or messaging videos. I guess you combine the two together. So according to Ofcom, the main thing that they like to watch is people doing stupid stuff. Pratfalls, messing around, your TikTok videos and all that kind of thing, which makes sense because that's how children learn. Children learn through play, through watching ridiculous stuff, but all the time they're learning the language of video and the language of how things work together and framing all that kind of thing. So it's quite interesting to watch them kind of get these seemingly nothing ridiculous videos, but actually take on board quite, advanced editing techniques and that kind of thing. Which is reflected in the stats as well. So around sort of 25% of children are then actively turning that around and pushing data back online and putting their own videos out there for the friends or for a wider audience. I'm sure a lot of them want to become the next big YouTube star, but realistically it's like 5 friends that say it, which is fine. They're still learning those kind of techniques and that form of communication. So that's it, really. That was just a quick overview of the kind of things which I've seen the kids doing over the last 18 months. Just in terms of any takeaways from this, they're increasingly connected in overlapping ways. They're increasingly using lots of different devices, talking to one another. The sort of blur of whether you're online or offline, all this kind of thing is kind of evaporating. And video in particular seems to be fueling a lot of this. They will create videos, watch videos. The sort of the typing text and all that kind of thing seems to be dying off and replaced by that kind of form of communication. This was happening anyway. I feel it was definitely a thing, but COVID has just completely turbocharged the trend in terms of forcing kids online to a certain extent during lockdown, and then freeing up the tools for them to do so. One thing I've not written here, but does worry me, I guess, is it's quite easy for me to talk about this and say all this as a sort of relatively affluent middle class father living out in the leafy suburbs. But I do worry about who's been left behind by that trend. And, not everyone has the same access to good internet. Not everyone has the same access to the technology and the devices. And as that becomes more and more important in people's lives, that we do need to pay attention to who's been left behind by that. And that's me. So.
Does anybody have any questions? Don't feel you have to. I've got one question. I'm not going to ask loads, John, don't worry. How do you think that this different consumption style should affect us as developers? And, should we be thinking about creating products in different ways because the audience, in this case, consumes them very differently?
Sorry, put that on. Yeah, so I think the shift is in the way that people are going to be consuming and producing content. So the consumption of content in terms of text and even to a certain extent the flat image is that they're being less sort of well trained in how to parse that, while as the consumption awareness of video as a medium, and those sort of interactive elements like that is becoming much more prevalent. So I can see more and more sort of video-based communication coming up, and the sort of the almost hieroglyphic shortcuts as well, which people take. So I mean, we've gone from text to people using emojis to communicate, and now I feel we're seeing a sort of second evolution of people creating their own image in response to emojis, and seeing how that goes forward. So I think that the sort of visual communication is getting a lot richer, and we're going to need to support that.
Cool. Anyone else? If not, we'll hand over to John. Oh, there's a question in the chat.
No, JavaScript's not going anywhere. So do we think this means we should be learning SwiftUI/Kotlin and focus on building mobile apps rather than JavaScript? Idealistically, no. I think the opposite. I think we should be enabling JavaScript and the web to do more, rather than going into the various walled gardens. But then I am entirely biased when it comes to web development. So maybe seek your wider opinion on that one.
Cool.
I think we're done.
Thank you. Okay.
One more.
Oh, is there another one?
How is that shift affecting employability? So probably no different to any other shift. We are, as technologists, having to shift on a almost yearly basis in terms of what we focus on and that kind of thing. So yes, there will be a shift on focus. Maybe they will favor different skills, but I think generally speaking, people will adapt and follow the trends. So maybe I'm being naive, but I think it will be different people the same people doing different things. It will just be a different way of interacting.
Cool, thank you. As John comes up to the stage and does his thing, I forgot to mention earlier that it is Leeds Digital Festival. So welcome to this event as part of Leeds Digital Festival. Yeah.
It's not on. Hello. Yeah. Nice plug.
Yeah, no worries.
Cool. Is that silently passing over to me? Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is John Bauer, and I am a software engineer. I'm a nerd. Unfortunately, I don't have kids, but fortunately, that means that I can make stupid tech demos for everybody. Firstly, I just want to say how great it is that Leeds.js is back. It's been in a bit of a hiatus, obviously, because of COVID. But yeah, thanks to Rich and BJSS for putting it on. It's quite near and dear to my heart, because I remember 6 years ago I went to my first Leeds.js, and it wasn't long after that I started working at Sky, just getting into the tech industry in Leeds. So yeah, it's a really good place to hang out, and yeah, I think it's great. Yeah, nice one. So yeah, Rich actually reached out to me and asked me to do a talk, and I asked him what he wanted me to do a talk about, and he said augmented reality. So, okay. All right. I just assumed that he's doing some sort of AR project and he just wanted some free code. So I've done some for you. So yeah, my talk is about interactive WebXR experiences using JavaScript. And for anybody in the audience that doesn't know what XR means, it means mixed reality. It's just a blanket term for AR and VR. And what we're concentrating here on is augmented reality here, and that is the way of overlaying computer graphics over real world stuff. There's two kinds of ways that you can do augmented reality. The first way is with marker-based systems, and that's where you've got a marker that you look at. And the other one is markerless systems, which is kind of more prevalent now with AR Core and AR Kit, native like iPhone and Android technologies. So marker-based is obviously those are the markers there that you can see. That was kind of the original way of doing AR. you need a marker to look at in order to for it to work out the world position of the camera compared to the marker. It unprojects the marker to work out how it's been distorted within the camera frame. And from that, it can work out using some very clever maths, which you don't have to write, to work out where the camera is in 3D space. Markerless AR, which is probably the thing that you're probably more familiar with nowadays, is using SLAM algorithm. There are probably other algorithms now, but like initially it was based off the SLAM algorithm. And I think, okay, testing me now, I think that means synchronous location and mapping algorithm. And the way that works is it looks at each frame of a video, looks for distinct points within that frame. So that could be like corners on a window frame or the corner of a floor or something like that. And then in the next frame, it looks to see where those points have moved to. And so from that, it can work out using parallax how the scene has moved. And from that, it can then unproject and work out where the camera is in 3D space. For that, you need a separate CPU. And that's why AR Core and AR Kit work on a separate CPU on the mobile device. So WebXR, what does WebXR do? So WebXR is a W3C standard API. It's quite new. And what it does is it enables you to find compatible VR and AR devices. So what your website is running on at that moment, it could be an iPhone, it could be Android. It will know how to use AR Kit, AR Core at that point to do the augmented reality. And then it will render the 3D scene to the device at the appropriate frame rate. You would use a like 3JS or something like that to do your 3D scene, but it would render that scene to the device appropriately because it's sort of like an open standard for the SDKs and APIs and stuff for AR devices. And you can also mirror it to a 2D display. And it also returns all the vectors representing the movement of input controls. So really, you wouldn't you'd use WebXR, but I'm sure someone will write a library at some point that will make all that a lot easier for you. So compatibility, as you can see there, it works on Chrome, it works on Edge, and nothing else. Poor iPhone users. Unfortunately, the iPhone's still the most popular mobile device at the moment, I think. That might be like 3-year-old data, but I'm pretty sure an iPhone is still the most common device. So what can you use instead? Obviously, you can't use WebXR. It's too new. It needs to be adopted across all the platforms. So what you can use instead is something called ARJS. ARJS is, in comparison to WebXR, slightly more clunky, but it's great. It works on everything. It's built on top of JSAR Toolkit 5, which is a mouthful to say. Or was that JSAR Toolkit? No, it's JSAR Toolkit 5. And JSAR, okay, I'm not going to say it again, is a JavaScript port of AR Toolkit and uses WebAssembly. It's actually, AR Toolkit is written in multiple languages. It's all based on C. So it's using ImScript to convert the C to JavaScript, and also uses WebAssembly as well to do all the sort of difficult bits. It also has built-in support for 3JS and A-frame, so it's pretty straightforward to use if you're using any of those things to build your 3D scene. So I can't actually, if I had a mouse, I'd be able to scroll down that code there. But what I've done is I've built an engine. Oh, nice one, thanks. Magic mouse in the corner. Yeah, so what I've done there is I've built an engine for the scene. It's pretty straightforward. All it does is create a 3JS WebGL renderer, and then it just calls a load of functions here. So these are the order of functions here. So it's creating an AR profile. That's the data about the camera on the device. The good thing about running this on iPhones and stuff is that the camera's pretty well known. They're all the standard size and focal length and stuff like that. So you don't need to worry too much about the AR source, the AR context, and the AR scene. So yeah, scroll down, magic mouse, please. Thanks. And so what it does is it creates a bunch of events there, just basic stuff on resize, and then create AR profile, just coming into the bottom of the screen there. So that's just creating the AR kit tool, the AR toolkit profile. And that's where it's loading in the data. And yeah, so I've just done some stuff here. So it's loading in a scene, it's loading in the pattern that we're going to use, and then it calls the demo scene. I did a little bit of logic there, just so it's using the same engine to run 2 different demos, which is a bit of a spoiler. But you know, there's 2 demos. So yeah, and then it does a render, but it will only render the frame if the marker's visible. Okay, and then let's go to the demo code. So demo 1 is like super simple. All it does is it just loads in a GLTF file, which is a new open standard for creating 3D scenes and then loading them in. And that's all it does. The update function there is empty. So anybody who can actually get their cameras open, have a look at that QR code. Just gonna. Go. Got it? I should have printed these out probably, but you know, I'm not getting paid for this, so I know. Okay, you got it? You got it? Cool, cool. Okay, so there's my AR marker. So once the page is loaded, you should be able to see. The TVs are a bit reflective, so hopefully people at home can see this on their monitors, and might be a bit. Can anyone see it? You might need to move closer to the TVs if you want to see it, but yeah, the TVs are a bit reflective. Sorry. Again, I probably should have printed these out, but you know, in hindsight. Cool. Okay, so for anybody who couldn't see it, there was a head floating in front of the TVs there, and the cool thing about that is that it's just loaded in on your phone really quickly. It's all JavaScript. You just look at the marker, you see the object. But you know, that's cool. Seeing an object's cool. What else can you do? So what I decided to do is have add some interactivity, just to make it a bit more funky. So the second demo is essentially the same thing, but it's just I tried to make a paper toss kind of 3D game. And it's right, you don't need to scroll down in that one. This code's all open source. You'll be able to access it and do what you want with it. So what happens is there's another demo. Everyone wants to scan that. Give everyone a couple of minutes while I drink my J2O. I'm not sponsored by J2O, everybody. Okay, everyone got that? Is it loaded? It's not loaded. Okay. Okay, so if you look at the marker, hopefully you'll see a big black hole in the middle of the screen. And if you tap the screen, you'll fire pieces of paper. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to do what I wanted to do, which is I was going to make this multiplayer. I was going to use WebSockets to so that every time you fired a piece of paper, it would see it on your screen as well. But you could do that. If anybody wants to make a pull request. See, Joe, this is what you could do if you didn't have kids. Right, cool. Okay, so what's next? Like I said, the code's open source. There's a link to the repo. The slides are in the repo if you want to go through them again. And yeah, just do what you want. I'd be really interested to see what you can do with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Amazing as always. Have we got any questions in the chat? The chat's getting a bit busy there, so we'll go through those there. It might just be lots of people clapping.
I'm going to move close to the screen. So.
Everyone's showing their age.
Cool.
Yeah, can we scroll up on the questions? I don't think there's any more.
Were there any? I think everyone's just saying they can see a face and stuff.
Okay, any questions?
Good. I'm glad it worked. How long did it take to code the game? What, including the bit where it didn't work? Probably. It was only like a few hours over 2 days.
I'm glad you're not making me feel too bad.
There was a moment where the lighting didn't work and it really sort of I had to go to sleep.
Cheers. So, quick question: beyond catching Pokemon, what do you think are going to be the practical applications of AR?
Okay, so you want some product ideas off me now as well?
Yeah, ideally, yeah.
Okay. Practical applications. I think there's a lot of educational stuff you could do with it. Like, imagine, like you know, there's sort of like 3D tours of the human body, the skeleton, and stuff like that. If you could actually see that sort of physically in front of you, that you could interact with, I don't know, something like that. Something like, you know, dinosaurs. That'd be awesome. You know, if I was a kid and I wanted to learn about dinosaurs, just seeing it come out of the screen and, you know, yeah, anything really where there's like 3D content, you'd be able to just like have it like displayed in front of the screen like that. But yeah, obviously it works better with print as well. It's not great on monitors and stuff, but yeah, that's my ideas. You can have them for free. If BJSS do a dinosaur app now.
I've got a car that's got like this sat nav on it that when you go to turn corners or a roundabout, it's got like augmented reality signposts that overlap it to show it where to go.
Okay.
Not to show it where to go, where to show me where to go.
Well, firstly, they're paying you too much.
It is a lease. But could you make that with this tech? I guess the challenge, because here you've got the markers where you're kind of pinning onto the marker. Yeah. So could you build that with this tech, or do you think something's missing and you'd need to go the native route? Yeah,
so this tech is really quite basic in comparison to what WebXR could do. WebXR you would use for things like Google Glass, if that's still a thing. You know, it just, you know, sort of devices and stuff like that. You'd use this really for just more like sort of marketing stuff, probably. I feel like if you want to start getting native and use AR Core, AR Kit, or anything like that, you need to wait for WebXR to be more compatible.
Right. So there is quite a jump between what you can do.
Yeah. I mean, because this is basically just like utilizing the CPU. It's only running this quick because it's using WebAssembly. But yeah, it would run a hell of a lot quicker if it was using sort of native the extra GPU or whatever it is, whether it's a GPU or CPU, I don't know, but whatever the AR chip is. So that one.
Colin Wren's asked, what other sensors do mobile browsers have access to that could be used for AR?
It's a good question. I mean, you can. I think you can use accelerometer and stuff like that in the browser. You've got accelerometer APIs. With JS AR Toolkit, you don't need to have access to that. It kind of works it out based on the marker position. You'd only really need that for, I mean, actually, to be honest, I think JS AR Toolkit might be using the accelerometers as well to help sort of smooth out the position, location stuff. I know that the native stuff still uses the accelerometers and stuff, so I'd be surprised if JS AR Toolkit didn't. But yeah, you don't need to worry about that if you're using the API.
Cool. Any other questions?
Just as a punt, how long do you reckon before we get sufficient uptake with browsers?
So the question for people online were, how long do you think it will take for uptake of these features in browsers?
So WebXR, I believe, only became a thing in 2019. I think it's probably mostly Google behind it, which is why it's Chrome and Edge. So yeah, it'll be a matter of time, I think, before Apple adopts it. Give in, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I think there is a demand for it. It seems to be gaining in popularity. And when it is out, it will make life a lot easier for doing augmented reality experiences. And again, you'd only need to build it once and it would work across multiple devices and with VR as well. So JS AR Toolkit doesn't work with VR. And obviously VR and AR are very different things, but you'd be able to build something. Obviously with VR, it's an enclosed environment, but with AR, it's overlaying stuff on the world. But you would be able to create experiences that work in both, and you wouldn't need to. Yeah, like a museum tour. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, like you say, you could just as well be in the museum, and you could do the museum tour at home with VR, or you could be in the museum and use AR, and it would overlay stuff over. Yeah, like skin over a stegosaurus or something like that. This should be pretty cool. There you go. It's another free one. I'm sticking with dinosaurs. Yeah.
Okay. Don't know if there's any other questions, but thank you so much for that. It's always really cool to see your creativity and see you push JavaScript to its limits. It's great to see some creative stuff. So just in closing, is it okay, Crispin, for you to pop up and just say a few words about what is next for Leeds.js? And you might want to sit on the seats for the people that are watching from home.
Hello. It's nice to actually see everyone in the room. So I've been facing the other way from the front. To echo what everyone else has said, it's a real thrill for us all to be back here, like doing events again. Like what John said, when I first came to Leeds, it was one of the reasons that I chose to come to Leeds was the tech meetup scene, and to be part of the group bringing this back at a point where we're all getting back in rooms and not feeling weird about it. It's just a real privilege. We have only really just picked up the reins. It's been a bit of a scramble just to get here, and I'm really pleased, thrilled that we're able to do something so quickly to be part of the Leeds Digital Festival. So a big hand to everyone, apart from me, actually, who was much more involved in sorting everything out. Now we're looking to do the next event, most likely not next month, but we will start again in November. So we'll probably go bi-monthly. So we are looking for speakers. So if you've got something you'd like to talk about, please do let us know. If you know someone who's got something that they'd like to talk about, please let us know. You can, if you go to the site, there's a form to fill out for suggestions for talks, and we'd really appreciate anyone who wants to speak. We're especially keen to hear from new speakers. We're thinking that we're going to continue the sort of format where we will have 2, maybe 3 speakers, but it'll be 2 speakers, one short and one longer. So if you've got a lightning talk or a talk that you're just trying out, we'll be really keen to give you a place to, like, a friendly space to practice that. And if you want some help with your talk, with making that work, then get in touch with us, and I'll be happy to help you make that jump. Do we have any other things to talk about?
I think that's about it. Please, for those that are here, please do hang around. Pool table, drinks and things on the table, and snacks. I think there's some food coming, isn't there? Like proper food. Laura, was there? Is that a nod?
There was a nod.
There's some proper food. So yeah, save yourself a couple of quid. Eat here. Feel free to either mix and talk to other people, or if you're not as comfortable doing that and you've come, in a small group, feel free just to stay in a small group and not mix as widely, if that's how you feel comfortable. But thanks again for our speakers. Brilliant talks, brilliant subjects. So a big round of applause for them. And that's it. Thank you.